What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Dave Wisniewski with Safer Arizona. This is the Safer Dave Show at SaferArizona.com, Arizona's cannabis legalization activist webcasting network. Today I'm doing a response video in response to an article written by Ray Stern from the Phoenix New Times. It is entitled 21 Reasons AZFMR Supporters Should Vote for Marijuana Policy Project Initiative. Now, just in case you're not following and you don't know what's going on, right now in Arizona, there are two campaigns for the reform of marijuana law in Arizona. There is the out-of-state corporate investor-driven initiative sponsored by the Marijuana Policy Project, which seeks to maintain a felony-enforced oligopoly for some wealthy dispensary owners. Then there's the organic grassroots cannabis legalization movement, Arizonans for Mindful Regulation, which is fighting for real consumer protections and real legalization in Arizona. So this article, 21 Reasons AZFMR Supporters Should Vote for Marijuana Policy Project, is written in the scenario that only the Marijuana Policy Project initiative makes the ballot, because Arizonan for Mindful Regulations will be pushing a vote no if only MPP's initiative makes the ballot, because we believe wholeheartedly that it is worse than our current prohibition for a lot of reasons. And it really takes me about 10 or 15 minutes to explain why MPP's initiative causes more harm than good. But in a nutshell, it's putting a small amount of legal marijuana on top of prohibition, and if you break the law in any way, you have no protections, and you're going to end up facing jail time for serious felonies for for sales and cultivation. We expect to see a decrease in arrests in simple possession, but the way it's set up, we expect to see an increase in arrests in sales and cultivation, which to us, we could do better. We can do something a lot better this year, AZFMR, and if it doesn't happen, we can save more people by waiting till 2018 than to get some instant satisfaction with the MPP initiative, which actually ends up throwing the state and consumers under the bus. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this thing right here. So what is number 21? It says, Arizona would overturn one of the country's worst anti-cannabis laws. Well, right off the bat, this is false. What's going on here is it says Arizona would overturn one of the country's worst anti-cannabis laws. Well, here in Arizona, our marijuana prohibition is a law called ARS 13-3405. The Marijuana Policy Project's initiative does not remove this law. This is one of our biggest issues with it. Instead, they're placing an incremental regulation on top of prohibition. So whatever's covered under their law is legal, but whatever's not covered under their law still defaults to the existing prohibition. For example, they don't cover sales of unlicensed marijuana. So if you engage in that activity, since it's not covered, that's still a felony. You're looking at prison time. So if you get your legal, 5 grams from a dispensary and they're all shut down and your buddy wants to buy a joint off you, that's still a felony offense because prohibition is still intact. So this would be either a lie or it would just be false because it's not making ARS 13-3405 go away. Arizonans for Mindful Regulation actually repeals ARS 13-3405 and replaces it with legalization. So, continuing forward, number 20, for amounts less than 5 grams, the measure would override Arizona's draconian narcotic designation for cannabis concentrates. And this would be true. They are making 5 grams of concentrates legal to buy from a store. However, since 5.1 grams is not covered under their initiative, this means that 5.1 grams would still be a felony offense. With these felonies in place, it gives police officers serious financial incentive to continue hunting down cannabis users and putting them in jail.
What if marijuana wasn't illegal? Would paranoia still be a side effect?
Well, I'm going to answer this for you right now. Medical marijuana is legal here in Arizona, and paranoia is still a side effect of medical marijuana patients. The law enforcement, cops, judges, they are ignoring the AMMA, and they are rating legal caregivers fully in compliance just because they have a hunch that they might be selling their excess on the black market, but they have no proof, people aren't compliant, and they're putting these compliant patients through the system just because they have hunches they might be breaking the law. That's happening today. 10 people a day in Metro Phoenix, including AZFMR supporters, would not be jailed and charged for cannabis possession. And I agree that simple possession arrests will be going down. That's the free cheese in the mousetrap. This is the way prohibition in Arizona is if you exclude the medical marijuana law. So prohibition says, okay, no one can do marijuana. Don't even touch it. It is illegal for everyone. This prohibition is put in place supposedly, to keep the drugs out of the hands of our children, stuff like that, all the good reefer madness stuff. But anyways, so prohibition says no one can use marijuana. But if you put a little bit of legal amount on top of prohibition, so what that amount is legal, but if you break the law in any way, you're still getting hit with full extent of prohibition, you are effectively baiting people into getting caught. Yes, you can make prohibition worse. You can bait people into getting caught. The way you need to do it is legalize it, but also decriminalize it out of the legal amount. Otherwise, you're setting people up for failure. Even Arizona cannabis consumers of modest means would no longer need to smoke the swag still being imported by the ton from Mexico. Really? That's a selling point to vote for MPP. Well, first of all, I've been looking for swag and I can't find it. Is anybody else having this problem? I remember before we had medical marijuana, there was a lot of really good top shelf bud, and then there was like the worst swag, but around Christmas time, that's when the swag was great. They called them Christmas buds. Yeah, guys, remember those things? I can't find them anymore. I don't know where to get them. They don't have them at dispensaries. I wish that dispensaries had a swag option. Why don't dispensaries here in Arizona have a swag option? It's like the swag disappeared, the top shelf disappeared, and we've got this constant mid-grade going across the board. And you know what? I would welcome some swag. I don't think that is a good selling point at all. And this is where you can kind of get that this isn't actual news. This is just Ray Stern's opinion, and he's putting it out on a news platform, but this is all just Ray Stern's opinion, and I'm just responding to him. So, continuing forward to number 17. Over time, it would eliminate the need for most medical users of cannabis to obtain a medical card, an annual process that requires several hours of time and about $300. So essentially what you're saying is people who are in the medical program now who don't need it for medical purposes will end up going to the recreational market. That's true. They are going to have a recreational market built around that 1 ounce. However, that is not a good enough point to throw the rest of your state under the bus. Like I said before, we expect to see a decrease in arrests in simple possession. But with the way their law is set up, we expect to see an increase in arrests in sales and cultivation. They do this by artificially restricting the availability of marijuana. If you go anywhere else besides a dispensary, you're still going to be considered a felon. They're still going to be hunting you guys down. We need to vote for Arizonans for mindful regulation that gives us the availability like alcohol has. Alcohol, there's 1,600 retail outlets here in Arizona. AZFMR gives us 1,600 retail outlets for marijuana. So you're going to have that availability that you're not going to get with the MPP initiative. With a choke like that, people are going to be inclined to go to the black market. Number 16, under one provision of I-08, the state would be stopped from unjust child protective actions against people for merely possessing or using cannabis. And I agree with this one. This is something good with the Marijuana Policy Project's initiative. However, the rest of the initiative will damage Arizona so severely in the long term that it completely outweighs any good that the Marijuana Policy Project initiative has. We believe that if nothing happens in 2018 and we have to wait for 2018 to get real legalization in Arizona, we would have reduced more harm and damage than if the Marijuana Policy Project were to pass alone. So what's going on here? What does he have this? 15, I just injected 5-hole marijuanas. 15, Arizona could remain a national leader in at least one progressive issue. This would be true if the MPP initiative was actual legalization that was better than our current prohibition. However, we believe it's worse than our current prohibition, a step backwards under the guise of legalization. This would not be true because we're actually going to end up causing more damage to our state than if we didn't do anything in 2016 and we passed real legalization in 2018. But this is why the citizens of Arizona formed Arizonans for Mindful Regulation, so we have a competing chance to get it right the first time in Arizona 2016. If you want to really piss off Republicans and so-called conservatives who support prohibition, this is your chance. Again, more proof that this is not news, just Ray Stern's opinion, and you're saying that you want to have everyone throw the state under the bus just to spite some Republicans and politicians that they've never met. That is a stupid thing to put out as news. Number 13. With California and Nevada poised to make cannabis legal this year, failing to approve a legalization initiative in 2016 could leave Arizona surrounded by recreational-friendly states, which would not only look ass backwards, but would no doubt cause the state to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in commerce. Well, let's talk about Nevada here for a second. See, Nevada's laws isn't that good anyways. Nevada can expect the 25-mile rule for recreation, or as I could last tell, they did have the 25-mile rule in the Nevada initiative, which is going to make sure nobody can grow out there. I don't think that's good at all. And then California. This is still dumb. This is not a good reason to vote yes on MPP because other states are doing it. Look, other states have different political demographics on the ground than Arizona. California is already decriminalized out there. Here in Arizona, it's a felony. So if you want to circumvent legalization out there in California, you're going to give people a bunch of tickets, But if you do it here in Arizona, you're giving people a bunch of felonies. This is why you need to take away the felony offense when you legalize marijuana. You can't legalize marijuana and keep breaking the law felony all the way around. That's how you set people up for failure. Even if some cities try to restrict home growing, those restrictions would be a vast improvement over the current law, which makes any attempt to cultivate cannabis a felony. Well, so what he's talking about is the MPP's initiative gives you 6 plants to cultivate, but if you break the law and you grow 7 plants, that's a felony. And if your plants combined weigh more than 2 pounds, that's mandatory prison time. So despite that horrible truth, the city councils do have the authority to ban that home cultivation. And those city councils are typically prohibitionists anyway. So what he's saying is even if our city councils, the prohibitionists, try to restrict home cultivation, the restriction would be a vast improvement under our current law. This is assuming that they might not give you a felony if you break the law after grow rights have been banned. But many of us believe still that if you ban it, it's going to default to the still existing prohibition, and people are still going to end up with felony arrests regardless. You're getting 6 plants at best. 7 plants or more gives you a felony. And when you break the law under the Marijuana Policy Project initiative, what happens is you get no protections under the law. So if you get caught with 7 plants legally, 6 plants is legal, but if you get caught with 7 plants, you're going to get felony cultivation. Then if you have marijuana, you're also going to get that felony for possession of marijuana. And if you got pipes and bongs, you're going to get felonies for all those paraphernalia as well. So you break the law one time, you fall off, you have no protections, and then all of a sudden you're hit with all these felonies from all these different angles when you thought you were comfortable and legal the whole time. Mess up one time, fall off into prohibition, and you are screwed. Number 11. AZFMR supporters succeeding in forcing the MPP to include cultivation rights in its initiative. And in November, they can reap the rewards of that effort. Okay, what he's talking about here is the dispensary owners that are financing the Marijuana Policy Project insist that the MPP yank our grow rights. So you have to go to a dispensary to get your medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, And if you try to grow yourself, you're still going to be a felon. That's what they wanted for us here in Arizona. They told us to expect the 25-mile rule for Arizona recreational marijuana, and we said no. We need to have grow rights. So we started boycotting dispensaries on online, posting all over their social media that they don't care about our grow rights. It's their fault that our grow rights were removed from the initiative, and so they put in these temporary grow rights to where our city councils can ban them. But we know that their intention was to not have these grow rights, and they were forced to put them back in, but they had that provision so our cities can yank them again. So you're not going to get your grow rights. I'm sorry. They put it in there so they can take them out. They didn't put it in there just because, well, it might happen. They put it in there so it can be utilized. That's why you write a law, so it can be utilized. Not if they want to do it, because you have intention on the outcome you want. So, yeah, they say you can have 6 plants, but we expect those grow rights to be taken immediately. Right when we pass November, December, we're probably going to hear about they're banning already. They're banning grow rights because city councils, like I said, they're typically prohibitionists, and you're giving them the right to prohibit our grow rights. They're already fighting us now. What makes us think they're not going to fight us when they have the opportunity to do so later?
Number 10, buying marijuana would no longer require plastic baggies, frantic phone messages, and a feeling of wrongdoing. It would, however, still require cash until changes are made in federal banking rules.
I don't even know how this is a selling point anyways. You're talking about if you get it in a baggie or not, so this is why you should throw your state under the bus. But anyways, buying marijuana doesn't require all that stuff right now. Anybody can get a medical marijuana card in Arizona. You just got to pay the fees. And I know some people out there like Mr. Michael Weiser, I would argue that he would debate me on this, but there's really not debating it because you can go in and get it without medical records. All you have to do is go and see the onboard chiropractor for chronic back pain and say, ow, before you touch your toes. And you don't have to have medical records. They just take your word for it and they will qualify you to get your medical marijuana card for chronic back pain. Anybody can go in. That's how it's done.
Number 9. Voting against I-08 because it doesn't go far enough would be like voting against Arizona's initiative for women's suffrage in 1912 because it didn't include Native Americans who achieved voting rights in the state in 1948.
I don't think this is even a good comparison because this argument can be used to defend legalizing a quarter gram and felonizing everything above a quarter gram. You get to legalize a pinch. And we're gonna build a market around this pinch right here. Not voting for this pinch is the same thing as voting no on the 1912 rights thing because Native Americans weren't included. Well, this is the same concept. We're saying, hey, it's not just because this is bad. This is so far bad that it's unacceptable. And we are already trying this. We have a movement. We got a community. We're not going to have to wait 30 years to get it right. We can do it in 2018 if we can't get it this time. Our movement's big enough, and the movement nationally is big enough. So it's nothing close to the same situation. Sorry, Ray. Bad comparison. Some AZFMR leaders have claimed that cannabis users would be worse under the MPP's measure than under Arizona's current law. But that's not true. No provision of the initiative creates a crime or penalty that would be worse than the current everything is a felony status. And this is the point that we're trying to make. You can't make prohibition worse by baiting people to get caught. Like I said before, they're not removing that prohibition where everything is a felony. They're placing that law on top of prohibition where everything is a felony. So what's not covered under their initiative still defaults to that everything is a felony. And they're only giving us 160 retail outlets. That's only 10% like alcohol availability, which is 1,600 retail outlets. So when you go from 80,000 patients that we have right now to potentially millions of people over 21, legal users, literally overnight, with no meaningful increase in availability, the black market is going to explode. And that black market is still in that everything is a felony offense, and people are going to get caught, especially with Sheriff Joe Arpaio's Operation No Drug Bust Too Small. Police officers have serious financial incentive to continue hunting down cannabis users and putting them in jail when they break the law. Number 7, AZFMR leaders have called the Kremla retail store scheme a monopoly.
But the plan actually allows for a healthy competition, not only among the state's 90 dispensary businesses, but among the other 70 or so non-dispensary affiliated retail stores that would be allowed. Look at what he's saying. He's trying to justify the fraud in MPP's initiative, that it creates a healthy competition. Look, their campaign name is Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. In Arizona, there are 1,600 retail outlets for alcohol. If you're going to regulate marijuana like alcohol, you would be expected to give us the same availability like alcohol. But they're giving us 10%, making their entire campaign name fraudulent. It is a lie. And this thing right here is just trying to justify that lie. Way to go, Ray. You're trying to justify a fraud here. No, this is not good. This is the restriction. This is the reason why the black market is going to explode, because we're going to have that consumer base rise, but they are not giving us a meaningful increase in availability. This is choking the market, and if you go to anywhere else besides these guys, you're going to go to jail. It is still going to be a felony offense to get your weed from anybody else, which is another reason why it's a lie. Because in Arizona, if I sell you unlicensed beer, that's just a class 2 misdemeanor. So to be like alcohol, you would have to expect them to give you a class 2 misdemeanor for selling unlicensed marijuana, but they're not. They're keeping it a felony, which is not like alcohol, making that campaign a fraud. Number 6, the limits on the number of retail cannabis shops, which is about 160 under I-08, is 1/10 of what would be allowed under the AZFMR initiative, can be expanded starting in 2021. So this is still not a good selling point, because people who want to get into the industry, they're like, yeah, legalize 2016, and realistically, they're not going to be able to get into it until 2021. You know, that's still a choke on the market until they get a hold on it. Once they get a hold on it, they're going to open the market up so they can establish and absorb the industry themselves, because they've already manipulated everything to where it benefits them on every turn. They're going to be raking in the cash. And I'm talking about the Department of Marijuana, the corporate investors who are funding the MPP initiative. This is about their pocketbooks. This is not about our freedoms. If it was about our freedoms, we would have more consumer protections and it wouldn't be so predatorial. If you actually look into the MPP's initiative, it is predatorial. It is designed to hunt down cannabis users because it doesn't remove the felony offenses after legalization or after their regulation. I mean, they don't even call it legalization themselves. I don't know how any of the press can call it legalization. Their campaign is campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Legalization doesn't appear once in their thing. And if you say, oh, you're regulating marijuana is legalization, that's not true either, because marijuana is regulated now. It's regulated to be prohibited. So regulation is not always legalization. However, things that are legal are regulated. You can have something regulated and still be illegal. Number 5, instead of being carted off to a filthy, unsafe jail, threatened with a felony, and forced to attend 6 months of task treatment, adults caught smoking pot in public would face only a $300 fine. Oh, look at him, trying to entice us into smoking pot in public after MPP's initiative passes. It's only going to be a $300 fine. Well, look, you're going to get maybe patted down. The cops are going to come harassing you about pot. They're going to be looking for opportunities to catch you breaking the law in other ways, because it is financially incentive and still will be financially incentive to take down pot users for felonies under the MPP's initiative. They want to circumvent legalization here in Arizona. They're already trying to circumvent legalization here in Arizona. We've got 4 bills that our legal officials have put in specifically to try to make it harder for us to legalize marijuana in Arizona. These guys are trying to take us down, and when you keep those felonies in place and a financial incentive to put cannabis users in jail, police officers are going to act on that. You have to take away the felonies. You have to take away ARS 13-3405. Otherwise, MPP's initiative is effectively baiting people into getting caught. They're going to get comfortable. They're going to come out and expose their activity. Hey, it's legal. I can buy it at a store, buy it here. But you still get caught in so many ways. They make it way too easy to break the law under their initiative. And when you do, you're going down big time. Number 4, the unregulated selling of any amount of marijuana would remain a felony, but no worse than the felony it is now. operating an unregulated cannabis retail or cultivation business from an apartment was never going to work as a career anyways. Again, here's an example of how this is all Mr. Ray Stern's opinion and not actual news. But again, this is just pointing to the fraud of the MPP initiative. Like I said before, their campaign name is Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. And in Arizona, if I sell you a beer without a liquor license, that is just a Class 2 misdemeanor. It is a fine. But here he's admitting under the MPP initiative, it's still going to remain a felony. Not like alcohol. This is exposing the fraud of the MPP initiative. And it makes it even worse because, like I said before, this kind of felony placement still gives police officers to watch the cannabis user. Hey, he got that pot. Is he gonna sell it? Is he gonna sell it to his friend? So they're restricting the amount of retail shops we get to 160. Like I said before, not a meaningful increase, but they close. They're not 24 hours a day. So let's say I go buy, an eighth from the store, and I come home, dispensaries are closed, and my roommate, my buddy's like, hey, it's late, dispensaries are closed. Can I throw you $5 for a joint? And you're just like, sure. That is a felony offense. That still warrants riot gears coming through your front door. And if you're cultivating your 6 plants and they just suspect you of selling on the black market, that still warrants riot gear coming through your front door. That still warrants flashbangs coming through your window. SWAT team coming, bringing a combat experience to your bedroom over a hunch that you're selling your excess marijuana because they think that, you're doing it on the black market. That stuff happens today under the medical marijuana program, and there's nothing in the MPP's initiative that prevents it from continuing to happen under their recreational initiative. Number 3, AZFMR leaders say IO8 would cause an increase in black market sales and cultivation, but that's not what happened in Colorado, where authorities say more than half the state's cannabis demand is now met with regulated legal sources. Okay, let's do a little bit of Google research. So let's look at Colorado population. 5.3 million people, 2014. Arizona, 6.1 million people, 2014. So automatically, we have over 1 million more people than Colorado. And say, looking here, the ColoradoPotGuide.com talks about over 900 dispensaries to accommodate 1 million less people than in Arizona. They're giving us 160, dude. That is going to choke the market. What don't you get about this stuff? This can accommodate Colorado. This could probably start accommodating Arizona if they gave us 900 dispensaries. That would be cool, but they're not giving us 900 dispensaries. They're giving us 160, dude. Number 2, Arizona schools would receive an estimated $72 million a year or more in revenue from taxed legal cannabis sales that they would not receive if AZFMR supporters help shoot down the initiative. See, this is kind of like where you're trying to throw a fake guilt trip on people, and it's not going to work, guy. Let me give you an example. What if there was an initiative that said, hey, we're going to start jailing all these news reporters, right? And all the money we're going to get from jailing the news reporters is going to go to education for kindergarten daycare, stuff like that. And you'd be like, no, because you got to arrest news reporters to get that money there. There's a lot of good ways you could spend blood money, but this you don't want to just because it's helping schools doesn't mean you got to vote for blood money, man. Actually understand how it's going to affect Arizona and realize this is not a good selling point. AZFMR initiative, gives money to schools too, but we do need money for schools. We just don't need to sell out the rest of the state just to give them some money. We can do it a better way. Number 1. If the well-funded MPP-backed measure goes down this year, Arizona cannabis supporters better hope for federal changes because it'll probably be years before voters see another legalization initiative on the ballot. Well, we're going to try to make it just 2 years if we can't get anything on the ballot, because if we don't get anything on the ballot this year, you can expect, say for Arizona, Arizonans for mindful regulation to be here full force in 2018. Why? Because we live here and we're trying to legalize it here. MPP, they're from Washington, D.C. So yeah, they don't have that sense of urgency. They'll wait several years before they come back because it's not as important to them as it is to us to get real legalization
legalization in Arizona. So it'll probably be 2 years, but this is why it's so important that we get it right the first time, that we support Arizonans for mindful regulation. We're coming up on 110,000 signatures. We have over 500 storefront locations that we need to get petitions in, over 200 volunteers. You know, we're doing a really good job, and we can make the ballot, Arizonans for mindful regulation. We just need some help from the community, and we're getting that help. We are excited about it. So please support the Arizona grassroots cannabis legalization movement, Arizonans for mindful regulation. Safer Arizona supports it. You can volunteer at legalizemarijuanainarizona.org. Join our group on Facebook. That's facebook.com/groups/Safer Arizona Community. Get involved with the community. Come to our weekly meetings at Jerry's Restaurant, Staff MMJ. Help us end cannabis prohibition in Arizona. This was Dave Wisniewski with Safer Arizona, signing off.